we started out with was talking about the idea of talking about solar projects for a while. We had not been to the point where we were ready to think about it to a great extent because other things going on. But all of a sudden we got a request from about 9 solar projects looking for assistance with pilots. And we thought that we would start a learning session to talk about what was there, what the needs were, and wanted to get some of the supervisors involved from both counties because they'd be involved too, to see what their thoughts are. I think as we sort of look at it, I think that we've seen multiple counties across the state with IDAs getting involved in solar projects recently, doing solar pilots under different formats. And we thought it was at least a discussion we should have to think if there's something that we want to get involved in. And I think the reasons is that the IDA is doing solar projects, solar pilots versus municipalities. It sets a standard for countywide pilot. We look at community benefits existing in terms of sharing with electrical power with some of the communities. We certainly see New York State very involved in a very ambitious plan to have solar have about 50% of the energy usage by 2030. And I think we're seeing a lot of those avenues getting started where more and more companies are looking to get involved in solar or those that are expanding. We also have NYSERDA involvement in it. We had hoped to have some of the NYSERDA people today, but we couldn't make it today. It's disappointing, but it's been nice to hear from them. But that's what we look at. So again, it's just a thought process and a training process or a learning process to figure out what we want to do or if there's something we want to do and figure out if communities have interest. And I think the strong benefit from what I've heard from several members of the community is to have one standard across the county would be beneficial versus each community or taxing authority trying to do their own. So we have with us a gentleman named Mike Dowd. Mike Dowd is from a solar company who was getting involved in Washington, looking to get involved in Washington County. I thought it would be beneficial for everyone to hear from him, not what they would like, but more importantly, what they would, what their needs are and why it's their needs, why they feel they need pilots and why they need what in essence is enhanced pilots. I have a presentation from PowerPoint presentation, which I hope people can see on the screen. Can't yet. Well, we'll see what we can do to get that going. I want to share screen. That's why I go to a share screen.
You're there. Yeah, I can see it.
There, we're there. So unfortunately, we don't have much on here, but Mike, I'd like to have you just give us a presentation, talk about why a solar company was looking for a pilot, what their needs are, and how they can help local communities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is everybody here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I guess I'll look on my computer for the presentation. All right. So thank you for having me today. My name is Mike Dowd. I'm with Matrix Development. I'm one of the 6 developers that are looking to work with the IDA to develop a county standard for pilots. And so I have a project in the town of Kingsbury, roughly 15 megawatts. It is approved by the municipality, and we have several other key consortium members that also have approved projects. We appreciate the collaborative effort here. We appreciate the discussion. Our intention here is really to educate you on where we're at and what we're asking for and see if we can create a mutual beneficial relationship with the IDA to create that pilot that benefits both the town, the school, and the county, as well as the IDA. There's a number of community benefits that I'll talk about a little bit later, but we're here today just to give you some details, kind of where we're at. We'd like to hear your feedback and really continue this discussion on how we can work together to make this beneficial for everybody. I'm just going to jump in the presentation here. I don't know, is it up on the Zoom screen?
It's up on the Zoom screen, yeah.
Okay, all right. So is there somebody that has control of that right now? You have to help. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. All right, so I'm going to go to the first page here, the topics we're going to discuss. So I just thought I'd give you a little background. There are a few people that have already heard our basic presentation, and I have more content in the back, but for those of you who have not heard about our projects and what we're trying to do, I figured I'd give you some insight into that. So I have roughly about 10 slides, which I'm going to rip through really quickly, some foundational material about who's working with me, where our projects are at, and kind of the characteristics of them. And then we can talk a little bit about what's going on in New York, the renewable energy standards in New York, and how we're trying to participate in that program and support New York's renewable energy goals. And then ultimately, I'd like to get to the 25-year pilot proposition, and why I'm here, why we're talking about a pilot, what are the benefits to us, what are the benefits to you, how we like to move forward, why it's necessary, all the kind of ins and outs. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. And then ultimately, the community benefits. So if you did a pilot, how is it going to benefit the IDA or the town or the other jurisdictions? And then we can talk about next steps at the end. That's the basis for my presentation. Like I said, I'm going to go through these first slides, just foundational information, more about my consortium and projects and stuff. I've been told I got about 20 minutes to get through this, so I'm going to move fairly quickly. If somebody wants to stop and ask me questions, please do. So who are we at a glance? We are 6 developers. We are leading developers in the industry. We work all over New York State. Many of us have many projects under our belts, and we got together in Washington County. I actually, myself and another company, CS Energy, got together and said, hey, we're all doing solar in Washington County, and we have certain roadblocks. There's some procedural stuff that we could work together on that would benefit everybody. So we got together and started talking. We're trying to do this in an efficient way, both from the municipal side, the IDA side, and from the developer side. So coming together just makes it's a better offering to the IDA. It helps us work together and create some efficiencies for everyone. So about 6 months ago, we got together, we started putting together our framework for our projects and where they're at and everything that's leading up to today. And so what we came up with is essentially we got a 4-year program ahead of us for the first tranche of 8 projects. 4 years is more than half the projects are already permitted. More than half of the projects are already permitted.
Hey, Mike?
Yep.
You more comfortable, you got enough space between you, you can lower the mask.
Sure.
You might be able to come across a little
Very
better.
glad to.
Thank you.
Thank you. So over the last 6 months, we got together, we've been working together and pulling the details from all of our projects, where they're at and what's going to happen. And so that's going to take, essentially, we're looking at a timeline about 4 years. My project and CS Energy has 3 projects that are ready to go this fall. So the difference between starting the project this year and starting it next year or the year after really is this pilot. That's our last step. So these are real projects with real dollars and real benefits to the community. We can talk more about that. And as I mentioned before, we are seeking a 25-year pilot. As CS Energy and myself, we need this pilot to go forward. But we're not looking for tax breaks. Pilots, the nature of pilots have been around for a long time. Use them for a lot of businesses, a lot of different business structures. Pilots have this connotation that there's a tax break associated. For solar, because solar is new, we're not asking for a tax break. We're asking for a unifying force or group that can pull together the jurisdictions and provide a vehicle so that everybody's on the same page, it's transparent, and we have a taxing agreement that meets everybody's needs. So we look at a pilot as kind of a unifying document for all those involved. we are not looking for tax rates. And we're glad to work through the details of that, and I'll talk more about that, but I want to make sure that's clear. So we have these 8 projects, 115 megawatts AC. Like I said, more than half of that's already permitted. In a few more months, we'll get pretty close to 80, 90% will be permitted in the next month or 2. So they're moving quickly. Out of those 8 projects, it'll develop roughly, it's going to develop about $15 million of income for landowners in Washington County over the next 25 years. It's a significant source of income for the landowner. It's going to help farmers preserve that land for generations to come. They may not farm it all this year or for the next 20 years, but it will be there for the family. They'll keep it in the family. Sometimes these lease payments are they're the retirement checks. It's their annuity to kind of keep the farm, stay on the land, keep it in the family. And these payments are really significant to the landowners. Sorry. All right. Out of the 8 projects, it's going to develop about $15 million worth of tax revenue. That includes pilot payments, special districts, and a number of other revenue. You got sales tax, you have mortgage tax, all of that stuff. So again, we're not asking for tax rates, but it will generate about $15 million worth of tax income for Washington County over the 25 years. And just a little side note on that, we have proposed and talked about with several members of the leadership in Washington County about creating funds for different things, workforce development, COVID funding, and businesses that need money. So that $15 million is our bucket of money to pull from, pull it up front, to fund things that you need today. There are definitely a lot changing in our society right now. And you may need more funding coming down the road than you know today. So we have a bucket of money that we can bring to the table and work with you to create that tax plan, that funding that you need for whatever activity you see is best. And then lastly, well not lastly, so there's 2 types of projects that we're working on. We're working on NYSO projects, which hook to the big high tension lines, and we have community solar projects. My project is a community solar project, and what that means is we're going to sell electricity to all the residents, businesses, towns, whoever wants a 10% discount on power, we're going to provide that to that segment of the population. The NYSO projects, which are the larger scale projects, they're going to sell power to the grid. It's going to go into the grid, they may find an off-taker, commercial off-taker, and they just sell it. It's a commodity at that point, but it goes into the grid. So there aren't savings for the residents on that side of the business, but my community solar business, there are 3 or 4 projects that will present about $13.3 million in savings over 25 years. That's on their entire bill. It's not just for the portion of electricity like an ambit and some of the SGOs. It's $13 million. It's 10% that will come off their entire bill. That's where the $13.3 million comes. So it's a real tangible benefit to all the residents, businesses, municipalities that want to take advantage of these community solar savings. We can talk more about the details, but that's the framework for what we're proposing today. That's our opportunity. My partners, I have, you can see the presentation. My partners include Borlex, CS Energy, Eden Renewables, Matrix, and Borrego Solar Systems. We are also backed by and have the support of NYSEA, which is a solar industry group that is working on tax reform and other incentives for solar to kind of meet our New York State renewable energy goals. Let me advance this here. All right. So many of you can't see the presentation, so I'll just rattle through this a little quickly. CS Energy has 3 projects they're looking at. 2 of them in Easton, 1 in Fort Edward. Those are all 20 megawatt projects apiece. Borlex has a project called Wall Mountain, that's in Greenwich, that's 20 megawatts. My project is in Kingsbury, the town of Kingsbury, is working with Peckham Industries on the Peckham land. There are 3 5 megawatt projects. I'll talk to it as 15 megawatts, but it's a fairly significant project and is permitted to the town of Kingsbury. Eaton has 2 5 megawatts in Argyle. Borrego has a system in Easton, and Community Power Group is looking to permit a system in Fort Edward. So that's the consortium of people. That's the first tranche of projects, solar projects. Most of those are fairly mature. Some of them are less mature. They're still going through the permitting process. And then there's probably about 3 or 4 other companies behind that that are also looking to do future solar projects. So the work we do here, the education that you take away today, will be transferable to projects in the behind our project. So it'll be beneficial. It's not short-lived. You will have more people knocking on your door in years. Just give you a little bit about New York State and the renewable energy goals. Governor Cuomo has signed into legislation. He's looking to have the entire grid 100% renewable energy by 2030. Specific to solar, he's got a goal of 6 gigawatts by 2025. Currently, we're about 2 gigawatts of solar, and there's a fair amount, my system included, between that 2 and 6 gigawatt goal. So we are moving very quickly. There are a number of systems throughout New York State. I completely see us hitting that 6 gigawatt goal by 2025. Some of those projects land in Washington County, and we're talking about today. It's not, just to be clear, the renewable energy goals across multiple technologies. So it's not just solar, it's wind, it's fuel cells, the number of different batteries, the number of different resources to make the grid work in an efficient way. I go on to page 8. Real quick, types of solar projects. I mentioned this, and I'll kind of go through this quickly again. There are really 2 types of solar projects that we're talking about today. We have large-scale projects. Boralex and CS Energy are both in the large-scale segment of the industry. They're 20 megawatts and above. And then there's the community solar projects, which I mentioned myself. We're selling electricity on the retail side of the world, and we'll offer the savings to the residents and property owners, municipalities or residents. Just real quickly, to frame up kind of the benefits that we're talking about, I mentioned, I'll talk a lot about community benefits. Community benefits are pretty broad, and it really depends on, there are some benefits that are going to happen. If we have a pilot or a benefit that are just unique in the project, and there are other benefits like funding, COVID funding issues, businesses, workforce development. That's stuff we can create together and create a framework for not only a pilot to fund the tax base, but also to create funding opportunities for stuff that you don't even know about today, right? So we have this bucket of money, and the benefits are pretty. We have a lot of options in front of us to make this a really valuable program to the residents of Washington County. One of the things that we have a consultant, many of you may know him, Sandy Mathis. And Sandy comes from the IDA world. We often talk about solar is not a job creator. It will create construction jobs. We will talk about the 500 construction jobs that we are we'll bring to the table. And there's some contractors we will hire to maintain the system and to keep up the property. But it isn't an Amazon coming in with a 1,000 million square foot warehouse and thousands of jobs for 50 years. That's not what we present. But what we can offer the IDA is funding from our $15 million to support your activities to fund businesses that are going to bring those jobs. We've done a number of IDA pilots or packages, trampoline park, the plastics, the plastic manufacturer. We can help fund stuff like that. So you need money to do that. We can supply some of that money to fund those activities. And so our value in terms of jobs, we'll bring the construction jobs. We can have an FTE conversation about how many full-time jobs. But what we can offer is money to support long-term jobs in other industries and getting Washington ready for other businesses to come in this area.
Excuse me, Mike.
Stop there for a second, Mr.
Sure.
Is that legal?
Is what legal?
can we get money, as a public group, the IDA, can we borrow money to do things? Can we borrow money from a private company to do things like that? That is not a bank. Or do we have to write that into whatever we're gonna put together?
Mike,
So, to be really clear, I'm not proposing that you borrow money from us. I'm proposing that we allot part of our tax revenue to IDA funded activities. I think, Joe Scott is on the phone. He would know more about the legal aspects of it. But it's our understanding that it's perfectly legal, and there's a way to structure it.
You're doing it now?
We've done this in other jurisdictions, yes.
Thank you.
Gary, you want to chime in on that?
I don't know, I haven't seen any sort of agreement to that effect, so I guess I'd have to have an opportunity to review the
Sure.
arrangement.
And I'm not an attorney, so, you have your attorneys, and Joe Scott would be a great resource to kind of leverage his knowledge.
And just to be clear, I'm more than happy to speak at the county. Is it the county attorney that's present there? I can certainly speak.
It's Carolina.
The county attorney at her convenience.
Joe, it's
Yes.
the Carolinas, the
Hi,
IDA attorney.
Oh, hey, Cara. How are you doing,
How
Cara?
are you?
Yeah, very good, very good.
Certainly. Okay.
All right. So the last bullet I have here talks about construction investment. We're proposing an overall package of roughly $20 million worth of construction. There's a fair more material that's going to be purchased, there'll be sales tax revenue, mortgage reporting tax. There's a lot of revenue. But I want to bring you up to something. There's a thing called the multiplier effect. The Department of Labor has established this multiplier effect. I can send you some documentation. So for every dollar you spend, it's $2.24 of additional stimulus within the community. So the $70 million, it really has an effect of roughly $158 million in the community. So it's, the package that we're talking about is comparison. I don't think anybody's has brought a $170 million package or $158 million package to Washington County recently, but it's a fair amount of stimulus to the county. Did anybody, does 158 million come to the table recently? No.
Not recently.
So, the heart of the conversation is talk about the pilot. I've already mentioned this a little bit, I want to mention it again. The pilot has this connotation of a tax rate. We are not seeking a tax rate. We are seeking what Sandy Lake refers to as tax peace. We want to work out a mutual agreement, open, transparent, come up with a pilot that works for both the IDA and the taxing jurisdictions in an ethical, open, transparent way that's reproducible.
But I have to ask this question because you said that before too. I'm not sure how that works because in my lifetime, I have to be 80 years old right now, I've never seen taxes go down. So you will be getting a tax rate. If we talk about a tax benefit today, or tax rate today, 25 years from now, 24 years from now, it's going to be a lot higher. So you will be getting a tax rate. It is a tax rate.
So I want to offer you the notion that what we're proposing is to increase the taxes every year for the next 25 years. Right? I'm not skirting that issue. We've done a lot of studies, most of the pilots we did. I got a 25-year pilot approved last week in the town of Montgomery, and we added an inflationary factor, which we can support with a bunch of data, but taxes will increase over those 25 years, so you will not be short of those 25 years. So, I'll kind of backtrack a little bit here. This whole concept about tax peace, we're looking for this mutual environment. We're not looking for the abatement. We're not looking for a free ride. We're looking for bring all the jurisdictions together. So the IDA has authority to bring all the jurisdictions together, create an efficient pilot that works for all people. And it may fund other things, workforce development, COVID funding, shovel-ready projects for new employers. So we want
want to sit down at the table and have that conversation with you. To do that, you need to develop a policy, and I'll talk a little more about the elements of what we're looking for. For us, it's really important. Keep in mind that our projects, when we develop our projects, we look at our revenue streams 40 years, 25, 30, 40 years. The NYSO projects are 40-year performance. So you have to predict what your revenue is for the next 40 years. It's a long way. 40 years is a lot of time. The trampoline park that you put in there, that's great. 5 years, prices go up, gas go up, they can raise rates. People will still come. Our commodity, the electricity commodity, that is a razor thin commodity that's traded every day. You don't get to raise rates. So we have to be fairly accurate with our predictions over the next 40 years to figure out what our revenue is. And because of that, that drives us to get that's why we need tax predictiveness. We need 25 years of visibility to make sure we can keep the system operating, we're paying the contractors to maintain it, we can still offer the savings, and together, we'll bring all these benefits. We need, with inflation, we'll raise the taxes over the 25 years, we just need that predictability. Because we can't raise our prices. We don't have that ability to do that. Not gonna happen. Hasn't happened in 40 years, it's not gonna happen in the future.
Background noise.
Just background, okay, thank you. So we talked about that. So there are two numbers that I'm proposing today. For the NYSO projects, for the large scale 20 megawatt projects, we're proposing $2,500 per megawatt. We can give you many examples that are much lower than that or in the neighborhood of that. So we're trying to put our best foot forward. NYSERDA has not provided guidance in terms of taxes for large scale systems. NYSERDA has provided a lot of guidance for taxes for community solar systems, which is my system. And so I can give you that data and we can talk about it, but those are the two numbers we're proposing. $2,500 per megawatt for a NYSO project and $4,000 per megawatt for community solar systems. And so our numbers, the $15 million number that I mentioned earlier in tax revenue, is based upon those two values. So that's where that comes from. And there's a website. If you go to NYSERDA's website, you can actually look up municipal tax guidance. It'll have all the documents. It's a pretty thick document. They've had an entire team go around to many jurisdictions across the state and train them on how they got to those numbers and what the basis is for that. So there's information out there for you that kind of look at what we're proposing. And I think you'll find that our numbers are reasonable. They're fair. So I'm going to dial back. So that's our request. That's what we're looking for. Tax piece, tax predictability. We gave you the revenue numbers. We're willing to create a structure that works for everyone in this environment today. So I wanted to give you some kind of context of why we're here today. If there was another means of getting to where we need to get to bring this money and the stimulus to this group, we would do it. Right now, there are a lot of roadblocks. So my specific project, I don't have a pilot option. I have a pilot with the town, but I have no pilot with the school. The school is opted out, the county is opted out, so I can't do a pilot with either one of them. Furthermore, I have an assessor that will not give me an advisory assessment before it's constructed. So I have to spend $25 million to figure out what my taxes are. The banks are not going to lend me $25 million to find out that my taxes are too much. And so that puts us in this pickle. If we spend that money and we build the system, and then we don't like the assessment, we either have to work it out, or then there becomes this litigation. And I think everybody in this room knows what happens in Port Edward when we go down the litigation route. We want to avoid that at all costs. That's what we talk about, this concept of tax peace. We want to proactively sit down and get this up front. We shouldn't have to don't want to spend $25 million to put something in the ground that we can't afford to taxes on. And furthermore, there's a benefit of the money that we're bringing in that can help what you're trying to do here.
So that's kind of what we're trying to propose.
So I want to ask a question about this point exactly, because I think it confuses people. As you said yourself, Kingsbury has not opted out. Hudson Falls School has opted out.
Sure.
The county has opted out. Now, it's also, is it possible? And I think the limitations on the town pilot are 15 years. Is that correct?
They are per RPTL 487. That's right.
Okay, so basically, to make it work for you, or any solar company, not just you, is that you need the predictability that no one else can give you at this point. What happens if, can the IDA give a pilot even for example, Hudson Falls School has opted out?
Yes, yes, you can. Yeah, it's within your authority to do that, which is why we're here. The IDA represents somebody much smarter than I developed these IDAs to take the roadblocks out of creating an atmosphere for business that can thrive. We're a business. Every solar project we have is a business. And so you have the authority, with some caveats, you have some authority to do a pilot on behalf of these taxing jurisdictions. That was given to the IDA many years ago.
So as I tried to explain, I know Joe and Karen are here, and legally is that within our uniform tax abatement policy, there are 6 or 7 towns, which, and Kingsbury happens to be one of them, that if we decide to do a pilot, we need their cooperation to do a pilot. We just can't do it without them under our tax abatement policy.
Sure.
How does that fit? I guess I'm looking to Karen and to Joe.
You would first need to amend your uniform tax exempt policy to allow for solar projects, because right now you haven't approved that in general. Then we'd have to look to, we'd have to go back and address it with some of the municipalities that have opted out of that, as far as whether or not they want to also opt out of that piece of it, I would say. We'd have to go back and look at those. I don't know if you're looking, I don't know what your, what the board is thinking as far as, are you looking for 100% buy-in from all the taxing jurisdictions with respect to adopting this policy, or if you, I'm not looking for an answer, but I think that's something you need to consider.
I think that's a good question. I think it's something we have to look at. And I know that what you're saying is that you're not looking for tax abatement, you're looking for consistency in planning, but still we have to go back to communities the way we're set up unless they, and I've got a list of them, there's six communities, I think 3 of them are in, 3 of them are towns you're building in at this point. Kingsbury, Argyle, Greenwich are the 3 that I noticed.
What's that?
Port Edward is also in it. So, I mean, the nuts and bolts we have to work through, but I think the first decision is, is this what we want to tackle? And do we have the cooperation of towns to look at this for their benefit? And I have a lot of questions and other people have questions. So I know that. I just want to jump in because I always had a hard time understanding that, why we walk through this when you could maybe not get a pilot from one community, or excuse me, one taxing jurisdiction in the community versus others. So anyhow, didn't mean to interrupt, Mike, but it's important. It's an important point we need to understand.
It's a very important point. And to be honest, Chairman, most IDAs don't have that kind of hurdle. That's a nuance for us. That's a new one for me. And we're glad to work with you. I think ultimately the jurisdictions just want to get their share or have their say in the matter. And we're glad to kind of support that.
But if I may, just to underscore, this is Joe Scott, underscore the point that Kara made. You do need to look in your policy, and having those municipalities as an opt-out is an issue of your policy. It's not a matter of New York State law. The IDA can move forward if it desires without those municipal approvals, but they would have, in order to do so, it should amend this policy. But that opt-out provision is, as one of the representatives from the solar companies mentioned, is unusual, and it's a matter of policy. It's not a matter of state law.
Well, that was my point.
Who was that? I didn't quite hear that.
Yes.
Someone made some comment in the background. We can't hear that. We can't hear those comments. Well, certainly we need cooperation of the communities, and that's what we're looking for too. I mean, we'd love to investigate this, but we'd like to do it with the cooperation of the communities. Lester?
Opting out. Means like whatever, we opt out, meaning it's not tax exempt.
It also,
I think there's two
There's
opt-outs
two
we're talking about.
opt-outs, yeah, there's the one opt-out of state law 48, the real property tax law with respect to solar, that's a New York state law. Then there's the opt-out of the IDA's pilot program, which I don't know historically, I mean, that was when the IDA was created in the 70s, and it's my understanding that the municipalities were given an opportunity to review the tax program and decide whether or not they wanted to have the ability to approve pilots within their municipality. So that's where these other opt-outs came from. So that's kind of like this historical piece, and like Joe said, it was an agreement that the IDA made at that time with those municipalities.
Hey, Dave, Chairman,
Yes,
you just want to ask everyone to mute if they're not?
if you're not talking, would you please mute? We're getting some feedback from the back and it's causing an issue. Thank you.
okay.
And I think it's Dennis.
What's that?
Who thinks so?
Dennis, could you mute, please?
Volunteers and all the things you do at the airport.
Hold on, I'll see if I can do it.
Oh, I did.
There, I got it muted.
I did.
There, Ally's got the power. Thank you. All right, go ahead, please.
So, all right, just going down the list here, I talked about the pre-construction assessment. So many of our projects lack the ability to get a pre-construction assessment. So even if you're going to tax it at full value, we don't know what that is. So it's hard to build $1 million projects without actually knowing what the value is. So, and if we do full assessment, if we don't go through the IDA, we don't have the ability to do funds for shovel-ready projects or COVID funding opportunities, anything that you need additional money. So full taxation standard is no different than a house. Fund would go and offer schools, when you do full taxation, schools can't take advantage of that revenue in their budget. It may help the resident, the homeowners lower their tax bills, but it doesn't get you new stadiums or new footballs or new sports programs after school support. So there are ways we can supply money to the school that doesn't affect the tax cap and we include it in pilot, but if you do a full taxation, you can't do this. So it's really limits your ability to utilize this money in the community in ways that you want to do. And the IDA has that flexibility to kind of bring all that together in a nice community budget. The other thing I'll mention real quick here in the existing tax environment. So we have a lot of solar going in New York State. I've built systems in Buffalo, down in Orange County, right here in town of Kingsbury. All this experience is coming to these assessors in lightning speed. There hasn't been a lot of change in the assessment world. And when you dump that much solar into this environment, the assessors are nervous. They're nervous, just like you want to make sure that you get your inflationary part of the tax bill. The assessors are very nervous, and so they take very their assessments are very precautionary. They're worried about getting sued. They're worried about how they make those assessments, and whether it's a discounted cash flow, or they assess it based on full construction cost. There are so many nuances to this, and this area is no different than any other area in New York State. There's a bunch of lawsuits going on because these assessments are new, and the framework is not there. Utilities have a framework with tax and finance. It's all written before, they have no speculation, it works really well with the county and the town, and that's all worked out. Solar jumped on the state, which is why we're here, because that framework doesn't exist today. And so assessors are concerned, they don't know which model to use. I didn't work with Kingsbury Town Assessor. She wanted me to call Tax and Finance. Tax and Finance told me, we're not going to do an advisory assessment. We're not going to, Governor Cuomo didn't tell us we have to. It's not in our purview. We're not going to do it. So the assessor is left assessing this device, which there are a lot of unanswered questions. The framework isn't really well articulated or documented. And so NYSERDA has provided a lot of this guidance, but NYSERDA is not a taxing service. So it's a cursory, it's an advisory document. And so, this is why we're here, because if we do this proactively as a group, we can cover, we cover the cost of the assessor, we make sure the municipalities get the revenue they want. We have other funding opportunities that we can provide to businesses coming into this jurisdiction. There's a lot of benefits of sitting down at the table and doing this proactively. And so that's what we like to see. We don't like the other. It's very adversarial. It's after the fact. It becomes very pressurized. And, it will certainly be scrutinized by the public, and we want to avoid that altogether. And so that's why I'm here today.
We're always going to be scrutinized by the public. Sorry, Mike.
I live in a different world.
So I'd like to sort of give it a wrap-up point, because I know I have questions from people.
Sure. I have one more point that I think is going to come up often. This conversation about a 15-year pilot versus a 25-year pilot. I kind of indicated before that our revenues are 25 years out, 25 to 40 years out. The NYSERDA projects are much longer. Our revenues are pretty much locked in for 25 years. And so our focus is on that 25-year number. Let me start. Our focus is on a 25-year pilot because it matches our revenue that's locked in for 25 years. When you do a 15-year assessment, you have this block of time, you have these 10 years. And there's always this conversation with the assessors, well, 15 years, at the end of 15, I might want to tax double on it. I'm going to get all this extra revenue. That doesn't exist. Our revenues are very linear, they're very stable, and we pretty much know what they are today out to 25 years. So this windfall that the assessors think they're going to happen, they're not going to happen. That doesn't happen in the energy industry. It doesn't happen with community solar, and it's not going to happen with the energy market. So the reason we're matching, the financiers want, it's all about finance. What the banks want. Banks want match the tax liability with the revenues, because we know what the revenues are. Not a business where you just raise prices. So it's important to have that 25-year predictability with the rest. And that's my last point.
Isn't the same model used by other utilities in terms of wind and normal generation, hydroelectric?
Yep.
They're still looking for that same, because the price of electricity is pretty controlled by the state utilities, and you can't overspend that. So that seems to be consistent among utilities.
Yep.
I had Brian Campbell had a question.
I'm sure you got one. First of all, I'm skeptical because of the last 5 years we've heard from every solar, hydro, wind scheme there is in the whole area, and every time it comes back to the same thing. The whole risk is on the municipality and the reward is with the company. To start off, you talk about a 10% savings on electric. We just contracted our electric from a fixed rate last year to a fixed rate next year, where we're going to see a savings of about 18%. So are you telling me I'm going to get another 10% savings off the other 18% I saved, or I would have got 10 instead of 18, which is 8% more? So that one bothers me right off of that. The next thing you have is your multiplier.
Chairman, can.
Figures don't lie, but liars figure. I don't know how you
Brian?
change that multiplier. and
Brian?
I would like to see it substantiated.
Brian, how about he answers one question before you ask
I
another?
hear you.
Thanks, so, Mike,
Oh, okay, I can let him answer one at a time. Go ahead.
go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Brian, this is Mike Dow from Matrix Development. If you didn't hear me before, I appreciate your question. Your question is completely valid. 18% discounts in the energy industry are almost unheard of. I'd be very interested in kind of working with you directly to understand, compare apples to apples. But I will tell you that the credit, the 10% discount that we're talking about relates to a credit. So it doesn't have anything to do with your energy supplier. You can still buy electricity at a discount, and you can still use our solar credit. And I can talk through that with you, but you can do both.
So what Brian's talking about municipality versus residential too, because residential is separate from, his entire town of Hebron doesn't get an 18% discount, I don't believe. It's a town of Hebron, right?
It's the municipal discount.
Yep.
You're right.
So there are some
Yeah,
caveats to
but
that.
we're not in the business. We can't really contract, well, I guess we can. We don't want to be in a position where we contract what our municipalities' residents are paying. That's not a good position to be in. I know Mega's tried to do it in the past. The first thing they'll do is hate us because they know where that's going. So I guess that's something, if we have to set the residence rates in our communities, I guess I would be opposed to that, even though that might not be what you're suggesting, Dennis.
Mike, can you clarify that for him, please?
Yeah, if I can clarify that, Brian, we are not suggesting you set the rates for the individual ratepayers. We're proposing to offer a discount. They have the choice. They have personal choice whether they want to take it or not. And we give preferential treatment to Washington County residents.
Okay, so what's your multiplier based on? Because it's a significant amount of money. I know in the ag sector, we claim how much money goes back into the area because of the ag community and all that, but your multiplier is so big that I can't fathom where that money's coming from.
Sure. So if you're talking about the multiplier effect that I talked about earlier, so just imagine that you have 500 construction workers coming to Washington County. You have electrical contractors, civil contractors, you have tractor trailers, all those people, you have all the contractors supporting those contractors, whether it's gas or service or parts or rentals, they run equipment, buying building materials, electrical materials. That multiplier comes from everything they do within Washington County when they're here. They're going to restaurants, they're staying at hotels, they're buying equipment, renting equipment, and there's just a numerous amount of activities that come out of the business of just constructing the array. So the multiplier effect covers.
Okay, so you're talking just, Mike, you're talking about build out. Because like in the ag sector, it's an ongoing thing that the farm keeps, producing and whatever. But you're talking, so your multiplier is more just from the actual build out. Once it's in place, there's no more multiplier, that all goes away.
Well, not entirely, actually. So some of that is true, but not entirely. So specifically on community solar side, there's active management of subscribers. There's selling that's going on to new subscribers. There's a bunch of operational activity that still happens after the system is constructed. Yes, the paramount of the multiplier effect will happen during construction and slightly after, but that multiplier effect will continue as long as the systems are in operation.
But it's got to be at a lot less degree.
It is right. It is. You're correct.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. Okay, so the last thing, so somebody else can get the question. we're talking about an escalator per year so that you don't want to have to come up with a new tax number every year. You want a rate that you know exactly what it's going to be from year to year. That's what your bottom line is at.
That's what we're requesting, yes. Yep.
Okay, so I've just done a lot of research on Washington County as far as our assessments. From 1990 to 2000, that 10-year period, our assessed value doubled. From 2000 to 2010, again doubled. From 2010 to 2020, we've pretty much been stagnant. The economic crisis of 08 actually, kind of leveled our economy as far as growth-wise. So we went down, we've come back. We're actually probably up with the tentative assessments right now. So we're probably up a little bit for 2021, if the truth be known. But with COVID going on, every time there's a mass exodus from New York, our property values go up. And they're expecting a big one this time from that area. But when we go out 25 years, if the truth be known, we should probably have a 10% escalator. That probably doesn't work in your system. It's like that. I think you're talking around 2%. I think 5% might be acceptable, but I think if we're as low as 2, I think you'll always be behind what our rate of growth is. So I guess I'm concerned with what your escalator rate is.
So, Brian, if you will, just keep in mind that I represent 6 different developers in 6 different towns, and all of those numbers are going to be different. We just want to have that conversation. So if inflation is your issue, we can sit down and pull out the data and take a look at the right numbers. But to say that 10% or 5%.
Don't have a crystal ball for the future, Mike.
What's that?
So,
We don't have a crystal ball for the future is where our problem lies.
so let me ask you a question, because this has gotten to me. Now, normally when we have a pilot, we have a physical building or physical plant involved. We have a building that in most cases will either appreciate or at least stay the same over the course of the years.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is a pilot that's actually in 2 pieces. You have a base, which is the land.
Yeah.
That's bare land, some's agricultural land now, and it loses ag exemption, so it becomes regular. On top of that, you have what was I trying to think of? You have a bunch of electronics that normally depreciate over either straight line or accelerated depreciation will accelerate over 7 to 10 years. So this is what I'm trying to grapple with is how does an assessor reach out 10 to 15 years to assess something like this, when essentially if you use a depreciation model, in 10 years, it's actually worth 0 on your books. Where does the assessed value hold on that? So I'm not sure that, I'm looking for education on this. I'm not sure that the normal assessment values stay the same, because we're actually talking about assessment value on if I remember correctly, income expense level to come up with a megawatts. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah,
so in terms of normal assessment, we think of, because it's not a physical value, the land's going to appreciate, but the physical plant in terms of electronics may not accelerate in terms of value.
Sure.
I don't know, am I right, wrong? Anyone can answer this question. I don't know the answer to it.
Well, let me break things apart a little bit. So, the town that I just was awarded a pilot in, we own, the developer, Matrix Development, own the land, and we have the solar system on it. And so the 25-year pilot covered everything, covered the land and the solar system. What we're asking for today, most of the land is going to be leased. I don't think any of my participants that actually have to ask, but I don't think any of my consortium actually owns the land. It's all leased. So the land taxation would be separate than the pilot for the solar. So the land is going to appreciate at what land appreciates in Washington County. You have rates set aside for that, the ag exemption. on at least portion of the land will probably go away. We are looking at, utilizing, grazing activities, within the roads. There's a farmer in, Argonne, I believe, that CS Energy talked about, and they want to use, the solar arrays actually to be a business model, where they bring sheep around to all these arrays and they actually go graze, and put them in the fencing, graze around the family. So there's some discussion about continuing the ag exemption, but I don't want to confuse it. So you have two different assets. You have the real property, which is going to be land, and then you have the solar array. And the solar array with the pilot will only cover the solar array.
Oh, I get it. So the person you're leasing from will be responsible for the land taxes.
Well,
They're kind of big. I'm not going to talk holistically about everybody's lease. There are 6 different leases that we're talking
Fair enough.
about. But generally the taxes are baked in one way or another. They're baked into the lease. So the landowners probably has some tax liability for the land appreciating, which he has anyways, and then he has the lease income. But hopefully the contract's going to contemplate both of those things. That the landowner also owns the taxation of his land, and will be compensated through the lease payment or through a tax payment.
Yes, but my point is the land is still going to have a base tax.
Yes, yes.
Plus what you're putting on top is additional value on that land. Got it. Thank
You
you.
got it. In fact, land taxes are going to go up. If they lose the ag exemption, land taxes are going to go up. So if no other reason, you're going to get more taxes from the land that the solar sits on because the ag exemption goes away.
Brian, anything else?
Yeah, I want to correct that just a little bit. The taxes don't go up, it's redistributed. You don't charge any more tax, whatever the budget is what you tax for. So it's gonna be redistributed some onto that comes off the exemption, and that'll go against, it just redistributes who's paying it. It's not new money, it's on the land.
So Brian, if I understand you, I think I understand what you're saying, but let me just speak out loud here for a second. So if the ag exemption gets removed, if the property's worth $100,000 with the ag exemption, and then the ag exemption gets removed, and now it's worth $400,000, the tax rate's staying the same, that landowner is going to pay more for his land.
No. The tax rate, the whole thing changes because we're only trying to come up with $100,000 in our budget. We only are still coming up with 100,000. Now you're just regulating who's paying the portion of the 100,000. Now more of it is on the land that wasn't, and the other guy that had just his house is to pay less. It's still the same 100,000 being paid for that $100,000 budget.
Brian? Al wants to speak on this.
I think this is an important point to take a minute on, because like I tried to get this to your group, and there seems to be a struggle with this, because I think you're concentrating on the wrong benefits. Because there are benefits to the project that you're proposing, but you're concentrating on the wrong side of it, because unfortunately for the municipalities, in the age of the tax cap, what happens in the scenario that you're talking about, with the ag exemption goes away, net farmer's taxes goes up, somewhere down the pipe, somebody's taxes went down. So the 15 million that you're bringing to the table on tax revenue is not an additional $15 million to any municipality. What it is a reduction in taxes to our already existing tax base. So I think you're concentrating on the wrong benefit. The municipalities won't see one more dime from your pilot, not $1 more. In the age of the tax cap, if we raise $1 million in taxes, we will only get $1 million in taxes. How that is spread across our taxpayers is the portion that you should be concentrating on. Because if you're bringing, 2-year-old math, $15 million over 25 years, $600,000 a year, what you're bringing to the table. Yes, right? Flat now. So that's $600,000 that you're bringing to town, village, school, county. That's $600,000 that ratepayers in those municipalities are not like that. Sure. So the benefit is actually not the municipality, is to the other taxpayers in that community who will see a reduction in their rate. Because of the additional, there'll be a shift in taxes, there's no additional. So I really, it's important that you wrap your presentation around that more, because there is a benefit, you're concentrating on the wrong benefit, because you're not bringing additional dollars to any of the municipalities. It's unfortunate, because 10 years ago, you would have. That's no longer the case. What you will be doing though, is that $15 million is a reduction of what the other taxpayers would have been paying over that same 25 years.
Could it be framed as $15 million in tax relief?
So the people, yes, the other taxpayers, there will be a shift in who pays for it. So he's concentrating on the wrong benefit. Right now, he's concentrating on bringing something to the municipality and to the county.
No more.
What the benefit you're bringing to the county really is relief to the other taxpayers,
Correct.
not to the county capital C. So just think about that when you're framing the benefit.
Sometimes called the voters.
Because,
Which is supposed to be the municipality.
That's right.
you know, if we're able to raise taxes 2% a year, the additional pilot money, the additional shift may give some stability or relief even to those communities. So that's really, the real benefit to talk about is the relief that you might be giving to the other residents. Because now they're gonna get a 10% reduction, possibly if they sign up for your product. Plus, they'll get some kind of relief in the taxation on their
Overall, yeah.
so there's benefits to the ratepayers and taxpayers, not to the capital C county. So just kind of try to reframe the
Definitely a different way. I wasn't thinking.
way the revenue structure is, unfortunately for the municipalities, they won't see an extra dollar.
Sure.
I'm really, really interested in whatever this bucket of money program is that you say has been done other places, because that scares us out. I'd love to see how that's been framed, this bucket of money as part of the pilot that doesn't flow through taxes. I would love to see that agreement, that's why that's a side conversation. But I mean, really, the concentration, I think, should be shifted to the community, the community benefit. Because the municipality benefit, there's not one government in the area that is gonna benefit $1 from the project, other than whatever community reinvestment we see. And unfortunately, in Washington County, that build-out that you talked about with 2.2% multiplier, those guys, with all due respect, are going to spend that money across their board. We don't have the hotels for them to stay in. Even a lot of the restaurants and stuff that they're gonna, the dollars that your construction workers are gonna spend are probably gonna be in Warren County. And your team's very profitable. So I mean, nothing against Warren County, but again, it's something to consider. You know, when you talk about the community benefit package, remember that, again, with all due respect to Warren County, that's probably where those money's gonna be spent.
Okay.
And those workers probably aren't local workers either. This is probably a specialized workforce that does this for a living, that you're gonna hire in from.
Actually, one of the companies that we're trying to pursue, and I talked to you about quite a bit, is Positive Energy. Is out of Kingsway. They do a lot of solar work throughout the Northeast.
That would be fantastic.
So
He's on Bramble.
The multiplier
Joe Thomas?
is the same.
I'm sorry.
You talking about, is it Joe Thomas?
I have his son actually.
Son, okay.
Yep.
Laura has a comment, I think it's relating to this. Laura?
A couple of questions. First, Mike, I have a question for you, just to clarify something. You've been talking consistently about the fact that on a community solar project, what you're giving as a benefit is a 10% discount to the residents that sign up for the solar. But my understanding of how community solar project works is that what happens is that the utility discounts a percentage off the utility bill, and then the solar provider in turn bills the resident a price for the cost of those credits. So are you saying that the net discount to consumers is 10%? How is that really working?
Yeah, so it's kind of it's a slightly confusing construct, but I'm going to try to keep this simple as I can. The solar, once we build the solar array, we'll produce a bunch of electricity that we put back on the grid. No different than any solar project. It'll go to the nearest home, business, and whoever's closest to the solar. When we produce that power, National Grid in Washington County, National Grid will record every kilowatt hour that we put out to the grid. Then as a provider, we'll take that credit, and we can apportion a piece of that credit to a customer's bill. So if I take if I allot 1 kilowatt hour from the solar array, I can credit a homeowner's bill with 1 kilowatt hour. So on their bill, if that that kilowatt is 10 cents, we'll only charge them 9. We'll only charge them 9 cents for that credit, and they'll get a 10-cent credit on their bill. So it's a monetary credit. 10 cents will come off their bill, and it'll pay us 9 cents. There's a bunch of mechanisms to record that, and it's actually getting easier and simple in National Grid. But they'll get for every 9 cents they pay us, they'll get 10 cents off their bill, and that's how simple it is.
Okay, so it might vary. So here's a little comment, and that is, Dave, I think from the IDA standpoint, it might be at a point where the IDA is going to have to decide whether to enter into pilot agreements. The reason that I say that is that the recently passed Renewable Energy Growth and Community Benefit Act. So basically what that does is it takes the ability to control large-scale solar projects. And when I say large-scale, that's like 20, 25 megawatts. That's not the community solar, that's the bigger one. It pretty much takes it out of the hands of the local municipalities and puts all of the permitting and regulations into the hands of a new office that's under the oversight of Department of State. So basically, it can bypass seeker, it can bypass all of the permitting and regulations that normally would happen on a project. But what it leaves, the governor's original language wanted to take the ability to do pilots and give it to that office. But my understanding is that didn't happen. So what it comes down to is we could end up with a 25 megawatt solar project put in a community in Washington County, and then our only choice is, do we want to enter into a pilot or not? So one way or the other, I think the IDA is, we talked earlier about the communities that have opted in and opted out. I think that's a discussion that's going to have to be continued. And given that there's I think it's a 60-day notification period. If the solar company came and said, we're giving you your 60 days, you have 60 days to decide whether to do it or not. So I think the investigation of how you handle pilots is something that has to continue. And Mike, maybe you can comment on that if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm reading into it.
Sure. So I would agree with pretty much everything you said. I would add a little more framework around the pilot. You got two different issues. You have permitting related to large scale systems, and then you have the pilot. The permitting, and just to be clear, three of our large scale projects that I'm representing today are already permitted. They've already received, they've gone through seeker, they've gone through the planning board, they're already permitted. So regardless of what happened recently with the new legislation, those projects are already permitted. They don't have to be re-permitted. In terms of the pilot, the 60-day notification that you're referring to is specifically around RPTL 487. Sitting in this room today, that framework doesn't apply to these proceedings. So the 60-day notification would only apply if we did a pilot with the taxing jurisdiction under the RPTL 487 legislation.
Dana Hogan, you had a comment or question?
Hey, Mike, using the Kingsbury project, just as an example, have you done the math to do the distinction between a pilot and just the way it's going to currently progress right now without a pilot, with the assessable valuation on the school tax and the county tax?
Much to the chagrin of my owner, I've done more math than I would like to admit. The issue is that my assessment in my calculation may not match the assessment of the assessor. I don't have a number for them, so I can't even calculate what the assessment would be, what the full taxes would be. I know what I think they should be, but not, but we have no guidance from the town of Kingsburg.
What do you think they should be?
I knew you were gonna ask me that number. So for National Grid projects, based on the current incentive, NYSERDA incentive, a National Grid project should value around $600,000 per megawatt AC. So a 5 megawatt system, you're looking at roughly $3 million per year.
Times 3, right? Because there's 5 megawatts.
Times 3, that's correct. Yes.
So you're looking at a $15 million project, correct?
Assessment.
Okay, so if we took that number and applied it to the assessable rate for the school and the county tax, is that a fair way of going about this?
Actually, let me dial you back for a second. It wouldn't be 15 million, it'd be 3 million per 5 megawatts. So it'd be 3 systems at 3 million apiece, it'd be $9 million assessed down.
Okay, so if I just do the math on that right there to come up with the total value, that on $20 per, meaning school tax is roughly 13, and I think the county taxes are roughly 7. Is that the number you had? I'm using figures off the top of my head because I don't have them in front of me.
I think, Dana, I think I just looked at some pilot numbers. I think, county is at 8. I think the school is at 16. I don't know what the town is.
Yeah, I think well, the town doesn't apply because the town has negotiated a pilot, a 15-year pilot, correct, Mike?
That is correct, yes.
All right, so if we did 9,000 times 20, that's 180,000? Versus the alternative pilot payment, which would be approximately in that situation. What are we looking at? 50 times 4,000?
Some real rough numbers. I'd like to get you a spreadsheet so they're accurate, but you're in the neighborhood. And 100.
So when you're asking for a tax abatement, we're going from 180 down to 60,000 in a pilot. I guess.
No. We're not, it's not 60,000. It's not 60,000.
Okay, what's the number?
4,025. So it's at least $100,000, and then you have special district taxes on top of that.
Why did you get 15 megawatt project times 4,000 per megawatt?
Correct.
Okay. What number do you come up with there?
So it's $4,000 per megawatt times 5 megawatts, $20,000 times 3 systems. So you're right, $60,000. And then there's special district taxes on top of that.
Versus 180,000 potential otherwise, correct?
I have to look at the numbers that you're calling me. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Okay, I thought you had them. All right, thanks.
Travis?
Thank you, Dave. I just want to make a comment that, we have a lot of renewable energy in this area already, but the bulk of it, by far, is hydroelectric. And they pay their taxes. They pay a lot of taxes. We have the Hudson River running through Washington and Warren counties. And I think some of the largest taxpayers in both those counties are, from the dams that are on that river. Now, if I had a competitor that you were giving tax breaks to, I think I would be coming to you and saying, hey, how about me? I'd be filing some Article 7. I'd be asking for some breaks. So you start handing out candy, make sure you have a big enough bag. And I don't, what I see here is a statement this fellow made earlier. It says, this is not a job creator. Well, when I was on the IDA, I was on the impression that was the reason the IDA existed, is to create jobs, good jobs, for this area. And, a few construction jobs here and there, I don't know. Mr. Campbell pointed out before, some skepticism about where these jobs might come from. I can tell you for a fact that we spent several $1 million of federal money on the airport here in Warren County. About $2 million of it went to an engineering firm in Syracuse. Another $1 million went to tree cutters, and we have plenty of tree cutters up here, believe me. But the lowest bid was out in New Jersey, and so $1 million went to New Jersey. We probably sold a couple cups of coffee while they were up here, but $1 million went to New Jersey. And then the second time we cut down a bunch of trees, that went out to Mount Marcy area. So, I mean, who knows who's going to get this benefit or if there's going to be any benefit. And it's short-lived during the construction time. Another comment I have is that my house right now is 100% solar. I don't have any solar arrays on it at all. I do participate in community solar. I do get a 10% discount. I think the array that it comes from is out by Amsterdam or something like that. But you go ahead, these guys are eager to get your business. They don't need to build another array here. They'll go ahead and give you a gift card if you want to go ahead and sign up. So anybody who wants a 10% discount, go ahead and call Common Energy or anybody else. There's Arcadia, there's a bunch of them out there. And yeah, you can get that deal. So those are my comments. But the biggest one is, what about the hydro people, and what are they going to think about getting more tax breaks when they're not getting it? Thank you.
Laura? Sure, I'd appreciate it, because I think that is really the nuts and bolts what we're getting down to in some places.
List out from our county director listserv, and based on the information that I got, I had 5 counties that currently have some solar pilots going on. Cattaraugus County, they have a 5,000 megawatt fee with a 2% increase. Saratoga County, they started at $3,500 a megawatt, and they've lowered that down to $1,000 a megawatt this past year. Steuben County has just one solar project. It's on a pilot. Tompkins County has 12 different pilots. They're all a little different, all we would say, and different values. And that's similar to what we've got going right now in Washington County on solar. Wayne County, they were at the $5,500 per megawatt. So both of the norm is the 5,000. What I was getting from some of the other county directors. With a 2% escalator for 15 years. They also have a post-community package in Wayne where they're giving $2,500 per megawatt to town, like one time at closing. So most of them were like $5,000. I know he mentioned his was $4,000 and $2,500 or $2,500 for the larger scale. I can confess that some of the county assessors in Washington County solar has been an issue with some dying. Both assessors and the county directors as a whole has gone to the state and say, you do value other electricities, why can't you do something with solar? And the state will not put a number out there. They do some hydroelectric counts for some of the towns, so they do have the values for those. So it is a little bit of an issue with valuing the properties by the assessors, constantly having classes and updating, and I've been involved in Putin and NYSERC from the very beginning when this all started a few years back, and there had webinars and, participate in those, and they have a calculator where they can calculate what the value of the project is. It doesn't always match. Of course, what NYSERC wants, they want to go green, they want everybody green, but there's, so it's been an ongoing issue throughout time with not just Washington County, or other local counties. One of the questions I do have for you is, Mike, is when you're talking solar for your community, is you have to be within that town of the community, or how far out would you? Because I've heard some community projects, we go 15 miles, or we go so much. So is your solar community project for the whole Washington County community? Because not everybody is National Grid. Some people in Washington County are NICEAG. So, all right, but you're saying you're gonna serve Washington County, make sure you're serving completely Washington County, because NICEAG is part of our area also.
If I could just answer that.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a good point. NICEAG owns a little sliver of Washington County. So if we install a system in National Grid territory, we cannot transfer this credit to NICEAG. So we can't serve all of Washington, but the majority of Washington County.
Just want to make sure that we
Absolutely. Let me also, the gentleman on the phone brought this up as well, this community solar, it's very virtual, and he makes a good point. We're early in the market here. We're early in the market. We have 2 gigawatts installed of solar, not community solar, but solar. We need another 4 gigawatts to meet our 6 gigawatt goal, to meet the New York State goal. There's more coming. There's some installed already, but there are companies going out there signing people up for systems that aren't even built yet. So, like, there's going to be this ebb and flow over the next 4 years. There's too many subscribers versus there's not enough solar units. So, like, we're in this transition period. So, to caveat that anybody in Washington County can go sign up for National Grid community credit. That's not necessarily true. It might be true at the moment, may not be true next month. It's going to ebb and flow. And so there's this concept, you talk about farm buying locally. Well, every dollar you spend for a community solar farm that's outside of Washington County, that dollar is going out of the county. You buy it here within the county, you're keeping your tax money local. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. In the end, 6 gigawatts wasn't pulled out of the air. 6 gigawatts represent a large portion of the demand out there. So there's not going to be enough solar systems for everybody to take solar energy credit. And that's going to ebb and flow.
And then a little bit on the land diet and the ag, as far as you do in Washington County, you do the ag penalties.
Yep.
When the land.
Roll back that part.
Yep.
Sure.
So we also, and the land diet changes, it goes from a certain amount per acre that's farm acreage into now it's a commercial acreage. So the value does change, so as long as your recipients of your owners or whoever are aware that, the value of that, just the land, including your that value of that land.
You reclassify the land
As commercial.
commercial.
It's not me, to the assessors.
Sure.
Usually.
Yeah. You're not.
Yeah. Just want to touch base on a couple, things that I.
No, all valid points. If I could take us back for a second, I was thinking about the comment about hydro and taxes. So I believe the hydro that's in Washington County, maybe in Warren County, I believe it's owned by Borlex. Borlex is part of this consortium, and they can speak to that more directly. I can't talk to that. One thing to think about hydro operates 24 hours a day. Solar only operates 8 hours, 9 hours during maybe 13 hours during a good day. But different apples and oranges. So I would encourage, anybody has questions about that, I would say let's get Borlex in the room. Michael, I think Darren Suarez, he'll probably speak to that.
Jack, do you have any comments? You've been quiet.
First of all, let me just come here as a supporter of the IDA, taking a look at solar projects and putting some kind of a payment in lieu of tax in place. There are, it was indicated, other counties that are doing it, and you are in a competitive position with other places to take and attract these projects. And while there are not a lot of permanent jobs, it's my understanding, contrary to what was mentioned before, the New York State Legislature created IDAs not only for the creation of jobs, but also for capital investment. And there is using the I-Plan model and other established models, there is a long-standing, impact, positive impact to communities in these situations. I don't look at it so much as an incentive as it is a partnership between government and the private sector. And we're making an assumption here that these projects are going to come anyways. Well, I can tell you 100% of nothing is nothing. If you don't provide some kind of government participation, we won't attract these projects in the future. We're in a situation that's a little bit different. We've got 6 projects or something where they're pretty much already committed here. However, to take them there. As it relates to hydroelectric, which has been the backbone of energy production in this particular area, not as it related to the old national grid sites, which the Morex people picked up, but the newer ones, the ones that Adirondack Hydro built just short distance from here, and also the refurbishing. Also, you've got the Index 128 megawatt power plant over in Florence. All of them received government benefits. The one in Florence was on a 15-year payment and tax program. So what I have to take and say is, if those hydro companies want to go in and put new efficient generator systems in, which I know some of the companies are looking at, then yes, there's an opportunity for a payment with tax. But if they've been there since 1912 or 1920, then no, there isn't any more than there's maybe an existing company. But maybe if we had a retention policy in place to assist companies that are here already, I'm not saying that it's the case, but General Electric might still be here, or Walnut may still be here. You're in a particular situation where you've lost a lot of good quality jobs over the past few years. And you need to take and put together a very creative package, be able to attract and also at the same time close the back door and retain companies. So with that, I'm not going to speak to the specifics because as your attorney, I have a chance to see that. But the concept of payment in lieu of tax, sales tax, and mortgage tax, New York State gave you those powers. They didn't give you the powers to make sure that there's proper assessment of the local community. You have jobs, and you have the responsibility for capital investment. And if there's people here knocking on your door that want to do that, I would not take it discouraging. Which, by the way, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, or 25 years, that time period goes by very, very quickly. I mean, I still consider the Target project or the ACE project, but that's 16 was something that happened not too long ago. That was like 18, 19 years ago. And I can take and tell you the South Glens Falls school system is really reaping the benefits right now. But I can tell you, both of those projects would have been here. That was 100% of nothing if they hadn't said yes. So I'm happy to work with you to put a formula plan together, but you need to get in a position where you're getting creative in order to attract capital investment.
Now,
Can I ask what I think is a quick question? Maybe you can come across by saying that. What happens after the 25? What then?
So, I break that into 2 parts. NYSO, the NYSO projects will keep going to some extent. There are 4, I mentioned earlier, there are 4 years, and even a 4-year performance. So the intention for NYSO projects is that will keep going. For community solar, the first cost is 25 years. I would imagine somewhere around 20 years or 22 years, they're going to come up with a new tariff to continue the operation of the system. Panels are warranted for 25 years at 85% production, and they're anticipated to operate 35, 30 to 40 years altogether. Is there's likely a possibility that they retrofit for the latest panel that's twice as efficient, and maybe that's part of the new curve. I don't know. But at 25 years, I would say it's safe to assume that the project probably will come out in
when you say come out, you be removed from the land.
Barring DEP commission, and there's a bond in place to do that. My project specifically will have a bond in place to cover all this.
So for your larger project, there's a 40-year, the tax implications are what? That they're, in year 26, they go to full valuation?
Yeah.
Just curious about what that looks like.
25 years goes by quick, but
It
it's a
does.
long time, and none of us will be in this room when that happens.
Are you sure?
Let's say I hope I'm voted by.
Don't let the gray hair fool you, I'm still good.
I can think and tell you, after 40 years, you haven't gone in and put new equipment in, not the accounting depreciation, but the actual physical depreciation of that panel, has gone down.
Now, we're more from a taxation perspective.
Well, and I think, you talk about benefit, like, we do a 25-year pilot. I think the real benefit is 25 to 40. The 25 to 20 user systems are paid off. Well, the technology is way advanced than it will be today. And retrofitting a system for newer panels and upgrading and working, it becomes standard. No longer new. We're in an emerging industry. The reason NYSERDA has incentives is to get that industry to a point where it can heal itself. And so in 25 years, that's going to happen. You look at the technology advancements along the way I've been in this industry for 10 years, and I used to sell panels at triple for what they are today, triple. And the efficiency is at least 15%, 10% greater than it was when I started. It's just amazing what this industry is. And so in 25 years, like Jack was saying, I mean, it's like the Ace Hardware. I mean, now you have this asset, they're ingrained in the community, and you've got full assessment, but you've gotten that. You got them out of the gate, gave them some incentives, and now it's really reviewing for the town.
Jack, and then we need to wrap it up. We go.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that it's also these ancillary benefits. It was mentioned earlier, the first time I heard it, I kind of chuckled, but I attended a seminar out in Berkeley County a few months ago, just before the pandemic hit. But especially on these large mega sites, the need to keep the grass mowed is very important. And they're finding out that they will, they're actually picking stones up and breaking the glass. There is a whole new industry that is coming around with having sheep go in and to the point, especially if you're looking at Washington County being agricultural based, and also it's known for its fiber industry. This is something that complements it tremendously. And I can't remember what the numbers were, but we were talking about a lot of sheep. And some people were talking about, well, how about billy goats? Well, billy goats, they jump. And they do more damage where the sheep don't. But, I chuckled the first time I heard it, but there were some people there from Pennsylvania that's what they do. They actually have a business where they loan their sheep out and they go around. It could turn out to be a considerable secondary spin-off that would have that benefits. But you know what? Again, 100% of nothing, you gotta get them here in order to enjoy it.
So a little bit of trivia. Back in the 1700s and 1800s, Washington County was a big sheep production area. Yeah.
Do we care?
I just had the trivia, that's all, we're going back to our roots.
I wanted to just remind the board that we are we are, as we're building, if we do build this rule and law for our pilot for this kind of stuff, it is something that no other, as far as I know, no other IDA is in the state, and it is that by-county IDA.
Yes.
And I think Mr. N was very gracious when he pointed out the effect on the other county of this. And that, I want to go back on Jack's comment too. We have over the last several months heard about the fact that this is IDA is only about getting jobs. Well, yes, but you have to build the basement before you get the building to put the people in.
And that's one thing that a number of IDAs have specified, is they're looking for the community benefit out of this, because you are right, you need the building blocks to provide it. And there's one thing that Washington County and Warren County to a lesser extent need, is that infrastructure in place to move forward. And solar as a direction going forward will, in my opinion, will help that. Other people may have other opinions, so. Any other questions, comments? I would like,
If I could, just on that point real quick,
Yes.
we did, I was at a school board meeting and listened to the BOCES program and all the great things they're doing with the BOCES program. And this would be a great opportunity. This, people talk about short term, but this construction project will last 3 to 5 years. And that's the first tranche of systems. So it's a long-term construction project, and we could definitely do something very innovative with BOCES to help take those students who are training to do electrical work or solar and bring them into what we're trying to achieve here. And so those are the kind of benefits, ancillary benefits, that would have a great impact on some kids' lives. I would have loved to get in solar when I was that young. So just keep that in mind.
Didn't have any sun then.
I would like to make a note,
It's too polluted.
is there are two things that they had not asked for. They had not asked for sales tax break, and they had not asked for a mortgage tax break. Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct. And that's in our presentation.
Okay. Mr. Biddle?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for this, Mike, thank you for this. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Al, always glad you're here on the tax side of things. Keep us on the straight and narrow. It's very helpful. Thank you. I was one of the biggest ones opposed to the IDA supporting solar in the past. And I think a couple of those reasons were they were just straight cut and dry with little or no community benefits, which I'm still, I look forward to having that discussion and outlining that. Next, the mandate from the state wasn't in place for alternative energy sources, which the governor has accelerated dramatically. And that could help with that as well. The locality of this, it's coming either way. So do we build it out and keep expanding in Wayne County and then sending our money out that way, or do we keep it at home? I believe, as Nick has wisely said, you need a foundation and you need infrastructure for business to succeed. And I think that this is part and parcel of expanding our infrastructure and our foundation here in Washington County. We need business in Washington County. This is a great first step, as Mr. Kelly has said. We need to do something to attract this, expand it in our county the proper way. And I know, Mike, that you're also focusing on local ag law for prime ag fields and so on. I hope that in these projects and in future projects, we can go on less than prime ag when we can.
Took a project off of my prime land, prime soils for that reason.
Thank you. We need to still have that because population is not getting any smaller in the world, so we got to keep producing food. But Mr. Chairman and the rest of the board, I am really excited at the potential here, pending the details. So thank you so much for presenting.
So I would like to make a note. We will look at Washington County over the past 5 years has lost over $100 million in assessed value. And that's just that I know of and can calculate based on losses. There are other losses not calculated in that. Yes, we've also lost good paying jobs from GE. So we have two fronts that I believe that we need to work on helping the community. And that's both on assessed value, which investment does, and jobs. Mike, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank everyone who listened to this. I hope that we have made some sense and some forward motion towards understanding this. I will get down to my nuts and bolts. My nuts and bolts is one that Dana Hogan brought up, is I need to understand the comparison between what a normal assessment would be versus assessment this way, because part of your sales pitch has been, we don't want a tax break. We need to ensure that we are looking at this as a partnership moving forward. One that holds true to your comments is we're not looking for a tax break. We're looking for an investment in the community. We're looking for that surety, because without that, I can't justify in my own mind doing that. But I also know, having said that, that if there are not pilots given to people, I think someone said that, they go off to Wayne County or to Steuben or Herkimer or to, I had the list of them. There's a whole list of them that are doing. Saratoga County is doing a solar project. Essex County just started looking to do a solar project and approving some of the solar systems. So if they don't come here, there's other places for them to go.
Yeah.
Our decision is it worthwhile for our tax base to get that assessed value up, to bring those taxes in, to help lower the impact on everyone else, as Al points out. There's never going to be a way that we're going to have a big jolt in income coming in, but it's going to level off and reduce taxes for other people. So with that, if I have no other comments, I want to thank you for attending. I want to thank you for the contributions that you've made, and we will have discussions going forward to look at. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. We appreciate you putting this together.
Thanks.
Very
All
informative.
right, thanks a lot. Have a nice day, everybody.
Yes, before we adjourn,
Build the dam.
we need to move the executive part meeting from Wednesday to next Wednesday, which is the 8th. Okay. The other thing is we got insurance quote on our property over on, or part of our property we're going to do. It looks like it's about $3,000 for the entire property. That includes the umbrella policy of $3 million and per occurrence of $3 million, which is required by one of our agreements. So I need a motion to be able to accept that.
Okay.
Motion by Nick, do I have a second? Second by Dan. All in favor?
Aye. Do we have with that, the Zoom, we have a quorum?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes.
Want to get that
Thank you.
started.
Ginny and Brian? Is that a yes? On the insurance?
It's Jenny, yes.
Brian's yes? Okay, thank you.
I thought that was Brian's voice.
Okay,
Just kidding. We need to adjourn.
we need to adjourn, yes. We're adjourned. Bye, thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Is he technically can do it?
Yeah, that's his,
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
We just can't serve coffee. BYOB. We will put everyone cups.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.